My name is Keisha. I am 34 years old, and I am a senior risk analyst for a major financial firm in Atlanta. My job is to look at a situation, find the hidden cracks, and predict exactly when the whole thing is going to collapse. I get paid six figures to see disasters before they happen. But for 5 years, I was blind to the disaster sleeping in my own bed. My husband Trayvon was charming. He was handsome. He was the kind of man who opened doors and bought flowers just because it was Tuesday. I thought I had the perfect life. I thought I was the luckiest woman in Georgia. But luck runs out. And sometimes what looks like a gift is actually a curse wrapped in red satin. If you have ever felt like the person you love is hiding a dark secret, or if you have ever been disrespected in your own home by your in-laws, you need to listen to this story. Hit that like button right now if you believe that the truth always comes to light. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss a single update, because this story is going to get messy. Comment below what city you are watching from. I want to know where my sisters are. Now let me tell you how a simple dress destroyed my entire family. I was standing in the middle of my walk-in closet staring at a velvet hanger. It was empty. It swung back and forth a little bit as if mocking me. My phone started buzzing on the island counter. The screen lit up with the name husband. My stomach tightened. It was that gut instinct again, that professional intuition that tells me when the market is about to crash, only this time the market was my marriage. I picked up the phone and swiped right. "Hey baby," Trayvon said. His voice was too high, too excited. It sounded fake, like a car salesman trying to move a lemon off the lot. "Did the package come? Did you open it?" I looked at the empty hanger again. I kept my voice flat, calm, deadly. "Yes, Trayvon." The package came. "Oh, good," he said, and I could hear him tapping his steering wheel. He was driving. Fast. "Do you like it? I had it custom made. Satin, red, your favorite color. Put it on baby. We have that company gala tonight, and I want you to shine." I took a deep breath. I imagined the look on his face in about 5 seconds. "Brittany stopped by," I said. There was a pause, a silence so heavy it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "Brittany," he asked. His voice dropped an octave. "My sister. What is she doing there?" "She said she needed to borrow some sugar," I said, leaning against the counter. But then she saw the box on the bed. She opened it. "Trayvon." She loved the dress. She said, "Red washes me out anyway." She said it makes me look old. But her. She said it looked perfect on her, so she put it on. I heard the screech of tires. He must have slammed on his brakes in the middle of the highway. "She put it on," he whispered. "She sure did," I said, and she walked right out the door with it. "She is wearing it to her charity event downtown. She said she did me a favor by taking it off my hands." For 3 seconds there was only the sound of his heavy breathing. Then he screamed. It was not a scream of anger. It was a scream of pure terror. "You let her take it. You let her take the dress. Are you stupid, Keisha? Are you insane?" "Excuse me," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Watch your mouth, Trayvon. You do not understand." He yelled and his voice cracked. He sounded like a man drowning. "You have to get it back. You have to find her right now." That dress was not for her. "It is just a dress, Trayvon," I said, testing him. "Why are you panicking? I can just buy another one." "No, you cannot buy another one," he shrieked. "You have doomed her, Keisha. You have killed my sister." The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My heart was pounding against my ribs, but my mind was ice cold. I knew it. I knew that dress was not a gift. It was cargo. And my husband was not a logistics manager. He was a mule, and I had just sent his sister into a den of wolves wearing the evidence. Let me take you back to 1 hour ago so you can understand exactly how we got here. You need to understand that I did not lose that dress. I let it go. The UPS driver had dropped off the box at 4 p.m. It was heavy, heavier than a dress should be. I signed for it and carried it upstairs. The return address was from a boutique in Colombia. That was my first red flag. Trayvon does not shop in Colombia. Trayvon shops at the mall. He does not have the taste or the connections for custom imports. I put the box on our king-sized bed and cut the tape. Inside layers of tissue paper lay the most beautiful gown I had ever seen. It was a deep blood red, silk satin. It shimmered like liquid fire. But when I lifted it up, my analyst brain kicked in. The fabric was too thick at the bottom. The hem was stiff. I turned the dress inside out. The stitching on the hem was messy. It looked hand-sewn, but not by a professional tailor. It looked rushed. I ran my fingers along the seam. There was something inside. Hard, rectangular, thin. It felt like a credit card or a microchip. My heart started racing. Trayvon had been acting strange for months. Late nights at the office, second phone calls he would take in the garage, money missing from our joint account. I had suspected an affair, but this felt dangerous. This felt illegal. I was about to rip the seam open to see what was inside when I heard the front door open downstairs. No knock, just the sound of the door unlocking and heels clicking on my hardwood floor. "Hello, anyone home?" Brittany, my sister-in-law, the bane of my existence. Brittany is 28 years old, blonde, and believes the world revolves around her because her husband, Jamal Trayvon's younger brother, has never told her no in her life. She treats my house like her personal lounge. I quickly threw the dress back in the box, but it was too late. She was already in the doorway. She looked me up and down with that passive-aggressive smile I hated. "Oh, there you are, Keisha," she said. "I have been calling Trayvon, but he is not picking up. I need to borrow your steamer. My dress for the gala tonight is a wrinkled mess, and yours is better than mine." She did not wait for an answer. She walked right into my bedroom. Her eyes landed on the red silk spilling out of the box. "Oh my God," she gasped. "What is this?" "It is nothing," I said, trying to step between her and the bed. "Just something Trayvon ordered." "Move," she said, pushing past me. She held the dress up against her body. She spun around in front of the mirror. "Oh, wow, this is gorgeous. Trayvon bought this for you." "Yes," I said. "Put it down, Brittany." She frowned at her reflection, holding the dress against her chest. "I do not know, Keisha. Red is a tricky color. It really highlights wrinkles, if you know what I mean. I think this is a bit too young for you. You usually wear those boring gray suits. This is a statement piece. It needs energy." I felt the anger rising in my chest, the disrespect, the entitlement. She was in my house holding my property, insulting me to my face. "It is my dress, Brittany," I said firmly. "Give it to me." She ignored me. She started unzipping her jeans. "I am just going to try it on, just to see. I bet it fits me perfectly. I have been doing Pilates." "Brittany, stop," I said. She stripped down to her underwear right there in my room. She pulled the red dress over her head. It slid down her body like water. She zipped it up. It fit her perfectly. Too perfectly. She turned to me and smirked. "See? I told you. It was made for me. Look at how it hugs my hips. It would look like a sack on you, Keisha. No offense. You have just been looking so tired lately. Probably all that stress from work." She grabbed her phone and started taking selfies. #GalaReady, #blessed, #stolen style. She laughed. "I am wearing this," she announced. "I am doing you a favor, really. You would look desperate trying to pull this off. I will tell Trayvon I confiscated it for the greater good of fashion." She started walking toward the door, still wearing the dress. My instinct was to grab her, to rip it off her, to scream at her to get out of my house. But then I remembered the hem. I remembered the hard lump sewn inside the fabric. I remembered the heavy feeling of the box. If I stopped her, I would have to explain why. I would have to admit I found something. And if I kept the dress, I would be the one carrying whatever contraband my husband was smuggling. I looked at Brittany. She was twirling in the hallway, admiring herself. She was selfish. She was cruel. She had made my life hell for 5 years with her little comments and her superiority complex. If she wanted to steal my husband's gift so badly, maybe she deserved what came with it. "Fine," I said. She stopped and looked at me surprised. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms. "You are right, Brittany. It looks better on you. You should definitely wear it to the gala. Show it off. Make sure everyone sees you." She squealed and clapped her hands. "You are the best, Keisha. I knew you would understand. I will bring it back tomorrow, maybe after I get it dry cleaned. Or maybe I will just keep it. Consider it a late birthday present." She strutted down the stairs and out the door. I watched her get into her Uber. I watched the red dress disappear down the street. I went back into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. I was not shaking from anger anymore. I was shaking because I knew what I had just done. I had just sent a woman into a public event carrying something dangerous. But I also knew that if I had worn that dress, it would be me in the crosshairs. And that brings us back to the phone call, to Trayvon screaming that I had doomed his sister. 10 minutes after he hung up, I heard his car pull into the driveway. He did not park. He abandoned the car. I heard the front door slam open so hard the glass rattled. "Keisha," he roared. I did not move. I stayed in the closet, standing right where I was. He stormed up the stairs. When he appeared in the doorway, he looked like a madman. His tie was crooked. He was sweating profusely. His eyes were wild. "Where is she?" he demanded. He did not ask if I was okay. He did not ask why his sister had stolen my clothes. He just wanted the dress. "I told you," I said calmly. She went to the gala, the charity event at the Grand Hotel. He ran a hand over his face, rubbing his skin aggressively. "You have to call her. Tell her to come back. Tell her the dress is ripped. Tell her it has bed bugs. I do not care what you tell her, Keisha. Just get her back here now." "Why?" I asked. I took a step toward him. "Why is it so important, Trayvon? It is just fabric." "It is not just fabric," he yelled, spit flying from his mouth. He got right in my face. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me. "You stupid woman. You are so useless. You cannot even hold on to a simple gift." "Get your hands off me," I said, my voice low and dangerous. He let go and paced around the room. "I put something in there, okay? I hid something in the hem." "What did you hide?" I asked. "A card," he stammered. "A VIP membership card. For a club. I need it to get in tonight. It is very exclusive. If I lose it, I have to pay a fine." I looked at him. I looked at the sweat dripping down his temple. I looked at the way his hands were trembling. "You sewed a club membership card into the hem of a couture gown," I asked. "Do you think I am an idiot, Trayvon? Do you think I am stupid?" "Just shut up and get in the car," he snapped. "We are going to the hotel. We are going to find Brittany, and we are going to get that dress back before she ruins everything." He turned and ran out of the room. I stood there for a second. I could have stayed home. I could have let him handle his own mess. But I needed to know the truth. I needed to see what was in that dress. And I needed to make sure that when the explosion happened, I was not standing in the blast zone. I grabbed my purse. I checked my phone. I had already turned on my location, sharing with my best friend who works at the FBI field office, just in case. "I am coming," I yelled back. I walked down the stairs. As I passed the mirror in the hallway, I fixed my hair. I did not look like a victim. I looked like a hunter. Trayvon thought he was in charge. He thought he was just retrieving a package. He had no idea that he was driving us both straight into a trap. And he had no idea that I was already 5 steps ahead of him. We got into his car. He peeled out of the driveway, almost hitting the mailbox. He was driving 80 miles an hour in a 40 zone. "Call her," he ordered. "Call Brittany." I dialed her number and put it on speaker. It rang 4 times. Then it went to voicemail. "Hey, this is Brittany. Leave a message unless you are boring, then just hang up." "She is not answering," I said. "Try again," he shouted, pounding the steering wheel. I looked out the window. The city lights were blurring by. I knew Brittany. She would be on her 3rd glass of champagne by now. She would be live streaming. She would be the center of attention. And if my instincts were right, she was also a walking target. "Trayvon," I said, looking at his profile. "Who are we really meeting tonight?" He did not answer. He just stared at the road, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would shatter. We arrived at the Grand Hotel in record time. The valet looked scared as Trayvon threw the keys at him and ran toward the entrance. I followed him, my heels clicking on the pavement. The ballroom was packed, hundreds of people in tuxedos and gowns. Music was blasting. Waiters were weaving through the crowd with trays of drinks. It was loud. It was chaotic. "Where is she?" Trayvon muttered, scanning the room frantically. "Where is the red dress?" I saw her before he did. She was in the center of the dance floor. The red satin was glowing under the chandeliers. She was laughing, holding a martini glass high in the air. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. And she had no idea that 2 men in dark suits were slowly pushing their way through the crowd toward her. They were not looking at her face. They were looking at the hem of her dress. "There she is," I said, pointing. Trayvon saw the men too. His face went pale. "Oh, God," he whispered. "They found her." He started running. "Brittany," he screamed. "Brittany, take it off." The music stopped. Heads turned. Brittany looked over, saw her brother running toward her like a maniac, and she smiled. She thought he was playing. She thought he was jealous. She spun around, flaunting the dress. The men in suits moved closer. One of them reached into his jacket. And that was when I knew. This was not about a membership card. This was not even about money. We were about to witness an execution. And the only thing standing between my sister-in-law and a bullet was the husband I thought I loved. I stood at the edge of the ballroom and I watched. I did not run. I did not scream. I calculated the distance to the exit. I calculated the odds of survival. Domino 1 had just fallen, and the rest were about to come crashing down. I sat in the passenger seat of our black Mercedes SUV, clutching the door handle with one hand and my phone with the other. Trayvon was weaving through evening traffic on I-85 like he was running from the devil himself. And maybe he was. The speedometer crept past 90. Horns blared around us. A red Toyota slammed on its brakes to avoid hitting us as Trayvon cut across 3 lanes without a signal. He did not even flinch. His eyes were glued to the road, wide and unblinking. His knuckles were white against the leather steering wheel. I looked down at my phone screen. I had Brittany's Instagram live stream pulled up. The connection was crystal clear. Too clear. There she was, my sister-in-law, standing in the middle of the ballroom at the Grand Hotel, surrounded by Atlanta's elite. She was holding a champagne flute in one hand and her phone in the other, spinning around so her followers could see every inch of that stolen red dress. "Hey guys," she chirped into the camera, her voice tinny through my phone speakers. "Welcome back to the stream. I know you all are dying over this fit. Look at the way it moves. It is custom, European silk. My husband Jamal spoils me so much. He knows red is my power color. I felt a vein throb in my temple. The audacity of this woman was truly something to study. She was standing there wearing a dress she bullied off my back 5 minutes after it arrived, claiming her brother bought it for me, and now she was telling the internet her husband bought it for her. It was a lie wrapped in a lie wrapped in a felony. I watched the comments roll in on the side of the screen. Fire emoji. Queen behavior. Drop the link for the dress, sis. Jamal needs to teach my man a lesson. If only they knew. If only they knew that the hem of that dress contained enough evidence to put half the family in federal prison. Trayvon, I said, keeping my eyes on the screen. She is live. She has 4,000 people watching her right now, and she is telling everyone Jamal bought the dress. Trayvon let out a sound that was half growl, half sob. He did not look at me. He just pressed the gas pedal harder. The engine roared. His phone, which was mounted on the dashboard, lit up again. It had been lighting up every 30 seconds since we left the driveway. No name. Just a long string of random digits. The kind of number that comes from a burner phone or an encrypted server. "You are not going to answer that," I asked. "No," he snapped. It rang again immediately. This time, the caller ID said, "Restricted." Trayvon reached out with a shaking hand and declined the call. He swiped so hard he nearly knocked the phone off the mount. "Who is calling you, Trayvon?" I asked, my voice calm. "Who is chasing us?" "Nobody," he said. "Just work stuff. A shipping issue." I looked at him, really looked at him. This was the man I had shared a bed with for 5 years. This was the man I vowed to love in sickness and in health. But looking at him now, sweating through his expensive dress shirt, smelling like fear and desperation, I realized I was looking at a stranger. 5 years ago, Trayvon was different. Or maybe I was just blinder. We met at a mixer for young black professionals. He was in logistics, I was in finance. We were a power couple on paper. We had the credit scores. We had the degrees. We bought the house in the suburbs with the granite countertops and the 2-car garage. We did everything right. But the cracks started showing about 6 months ago. As a risk analyst, my brain is wired to notice patterns. I notice when things do not add up. It started with the money. Small withdrawals at first, $200 here, $500 there. Then the deposits started getting weird. Large sums of cash deposited into our joint account, always under the limit that triggers an IRS audit. When I asked him about it, he said it was bonuses. He said it was side consulting. Then came the late nights, the trips to the warehouse at 3 a.m. because of a sudden emergency. The second phone he thought I did not know about, hidden in the spare tire well of his car. I found it 3 months ago when I was looking for the tire jack. I did not turn it on. I did not confront him. I just put it back and started watching. I started moving my own money into a separate high-yield savings account. I started updating my resume. I started building my own escape route because I knew the ship was sinking. I just did not know the ship was going to explode tonight. Trayvon swerved again, narrowly missing a delivery truck. "Slow down," I said, sharp and commanding. "If we die in a car crash, we cannot get the dress back." He eased off the gas slightly, but his leg was bouncing up and down nervously. "We are almost there," he muttered. "We have to get to her before what, Trayvon?" I pushed. "Before the owners of the dress come to collect." He whipped his head toward me, his eyes filled with panic. "What do you know, Keisha? Did you open it? Did you look inside?" "I did not have to open it," I said. "I have eyes. I have a brain. You do not buy couture from a warehouse in Colombia that ships via standard freight, and you definitely do not panic like this over a fashion emergency." He looked back at the road, swallowing hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. "I made a mistake, Keisha," he whispered. "I just needed to pay off some debts. It was supposed to be one time, just one shipment. They said it was just documents. Corporate espionage stuff, nothing violent, just data. And you sewed it into a dress I asked, incredulous. That was your master plan. It was the only way to get it past customs," he said. "They do not check personal gifts. They do not check luxury items for wives. It was supposed to be easy. You were supposed to put it in the closet. I was going to cut it out tonight while you were sleeping and hand it off tomorrow." I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "So you used me. You made me an accomplice without my consent. You put my name on the shipping manifest. If the feds had intercepted that package, I would be the one in handcuffs right now." He did not answer. He knew I was right. That was the betrayal that hurt more than the lies. He did not just risk his own safety. He leveraged my clean record, my career, and my freedom to cover his tracks. He used my reputation as a shield for his dirt. On the screen, Brittany was now at the bar. She was clinking glasses with a tall man in a tuxedo. "Oh, look," she squealed. "It is Councilman Davis. He loves the dress, too." Trayvon groaned. "She is talking to the city councilman. She is drawing so much attention." The phone on the dashboard lit up again. This time, a text message popped up on the screen. It was brief. It was brutal. "We see her." Trayvon read the message, and I saw the color drain from his face completely. He looked like a corpse driving a hearse. "They are there," he whispered. "They are at the hotel." "Drive faster," I said. The car lunged forward as he floored it. We tore through the city streets, running red lights. The beautiful skyline of Atlanta flashed by a blur of gold and silver lights, but all I could see was the darkness closing in. I looked back at the live stream. Brittany was laughing. She threw her head back, exposing her long neck. The red satin hugged her curves perfectly. The hidden pocket in the hem swung dangerously close to a spilled drink on the floor. I zoomed in on the video. In the background behind Brittany's left shoulder, I saw movement. A man in a dark suit was pushing through the crowd. He was not looking at the stage. He was not looking at the bar. He was looking directly at the back of Brittany's dress. He had an earpiece, and he had a hand inside his jacket. "Trayvon," I said, my voice steady but cold as ice, "you have about 3 minutes before your sister becomes a headline." We screeched around the final corner, the Grand Hotel rising up in front of us like a fortress. Valets were running out to open doors for guests, but Trayvon did not wait for them. He drove the SUV right up onto the sidewalk, scattering pedestrians. He threw the car into park and jumped out, leaving the engine running. I grabbed my phone and followed him. My heels hit the pavement hard. I smoothed down my blazer. I took a deep breath of the cool night air. Inside that building, my marriage was officially over. Inside that building, the man I married was about to be revealed as a criminal and a fool. But I was not going to let him take me down with him. And despite everything, despite her cruelty and her theft, I was not going to let Brittany die for a dress. I walked through the revolving doors into the golden light of the lobby. The air smelled of lilies and expensive perfume. Piano music drifted from the mezzanine. It was a scene of perfect elegance. But I knew better. I knew that chaos was just an elevator ride away. I saw Trayvon sprinting toward the grand staircase, pushing past a security guard. "Sir, you cannot go up there," the guard yelled. I walked past the guard, holding up my hand. "It is okay," I said, flashing my most professional smile. "He is with me. We are just late for the party." The guard hesitated, looking at my calm demeanor versus Traven's panic. In that split second of hesitation, I walked past him. I climbed the stairs one by one. I did not run. I did not panic. I prepared myself. I switched off the part of my brain that was a wife and turned on the part of my brain that was a survivor. I checked the live stream one last time. Brittany was shouting over the music. "I am going to the ladies' room, guys," she said, winking at the camera. "Need to powder my nose. Be right back." The screen went black as she paused the video. The ladies' room. That was where she was going. A confined space. No witnesses. One way in, one way out. I looked at the top of the stairs. Traven was already gone, disappearing into the crowd of the ballroom. He was running blind. I turned left toward the corridor where the restrooms were located. I knew exactly where to go. The hunt was on, and I intended to be the one who finished it. The Grand Hotel ballroom was a sea of black tuxedos and pale pastel gowns. It was a room filled with old money, soft laughter, and the clinking of crystal glasses. But right in the center of it all, cutting through the elegance like a jagged knife, was my sister-in-law, Brittany. She was impossible to miss. The dress I had held in my hands just an hour ago was now draped over her body and under the massive crystal chandeliers. That red satin did not just shine, it screamed. It was a deep, violent crimson that demanded attention, and Brittany was drinking that attention up like it was the expensive champagne in her hand. I stood in the shadow of a large marble pillar near the entrance, watching. My husband Trayvon was moving through the crowd ahead of me. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. He was sweating so much I could see the dark patches forming on the back of his shirt. He was not looking at the decor. He was not looking at the waiters. He was looking at this perimeter of the room. And so was I. My eyes scanned the corners. My training as a risk analyst kicked in immediately. I looked for anomalies. I looked for things that did not belong, and I found them in less than 10 seconds. At the far end of the bar, there were two men. They were not drinking. They were not talking to anyone. They were wearing suits that cost more than my car, but the fit was wrong around the chest and the waist. It was the telltale bulk of concealed weapons. They were standing perfectly still like statues, but their eyes were moving. They were locked onto Brittany. Then I looked to the right near the orchestra. Another man. Alone. He was tapping his ear, an earpiece. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. This was not a paranoia. This was a tactical operation. These men were professionals. They were the kind of people who clean up messes for cartels and syndicates. And right now, the mess they were here to clean up was dancing in the middle of the floor, doing a spin for a TikTok video. Trayvon saw them too. I saw his shoulders stiffen. He realized that we had walked into a lion's den. He knew he had to get that dress out of there before those men decided to make their move. He pushed past a waiter, nearly knocking a tray of hors d'oeuvres to the floor. He rushed toward Brittany. She was laughing loudly, her head thrown back, clinging to the arm of a local politician who looked like he was trying to politely escape her grip. Brittany, Trayvon hissed as he reached her. He grabbed her arm, not gently. It was the grip of a desperate man. Brittany spun around, her face flushed with alcohol and adrenaline. Oh, look who finally decided to show up. My brother, the man of the hour. Where is your wife, Trayvon? Did she stay home to cry about her old wardrobe? We are leaving, Trayvon said, his voice tight and low. Right now. Come with me. Brittany pulled her arm back, stumbling slightly in her heels. What? No. I am not going anywhere. The party just started, and I am the star. Look at this dress, Trayvon. Everyone loves it. Give me the dress, Trayvon snapped. He was losing control. The fear was making him irrational. We need to go to the car. You need to take it off. Now. Brittany's eyes went wide. Then they narrowed into slits of pure malice. She let out a loud, high-pitched laugh that made several people nearby turn and look. Are you serious? She shouted. Her voice echoed over the low hum of the jazz music. You want me to take it off? Here. You are sick, Trayvon. I am not asking you, Trayvon said, reaching for her again. He grabbed her wrist, this time pulling her toward the exit. It is an emergency. You do not understand. Let go of me, she screamed. The music stopped. The chatter in the room died instantly. All eyes turned to the center of the floor. Brittany saw her audience. She saw the spotlight on her, and she decided to give the performance of a lifetime. She wrenched her arm free from Trevor's grip and shoved him backward. "This is unbelievable," she yelled, gesturing wildly with her champagne glass. Alcohol sloshed over the rim, splashing onto the pristine floor. "You are so petty. You are actually here to take the dress back, aren't you?" "Brittany, please," Trayvon begged, looking around frantically. He saw the men in the suits stepping closer. The circle was closing. "No, I will not be quiet," she shouted. She turned to the crowd, playing the victim with Oscar-winning dedication. "Everyone look at this, my own brother. He gave me this dress because his wife Keisha could not fit into it. She was too big, too old. And now that he sees how good I look, he wants it back. He is trying to strip me naked in the middle of a charity gala because his wife is jealous." A ripple of shock went through the room. People whispered. I saw disgust on their faces. Not for Brittany, but for Trayvon. They saw a controlling, abusive man trying to humiliate a young woman. They did not see a brother trying to save his sister from a bullet. "How cheap are you?" Brittany continued, stepping toward him, poking him in the chest with a manicured finger. "Did Keisha send you? Is she waiting in the car crying because I outshined her? Tell her to grow up. And you, Trayvon, you should be ashamed of yourself. You are hurting me. You are ruining my night because you are a cheap, jealous, pathetic little man." Trayvon stood there frozen. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. What could he say? Could he tell the room that the hem of the dress contained a microchip stolen from a dangerous crime lord? Could he tell them that the men watching from the shadows were about to kidnap her? He could not. The truth would send him to prison. The lie was destroying his reputation. He was trapped. I watched from the pillar, my arms crossed. I saw the man with the earpiece move. He signaled to the other two. They started walking. They were not rushing. They were gliding through the stunned crowd, using the distraction to get close. Trayvon saw them coming. He looked at me. His eyes met mine across the room. He looked terrified. He looked like a child who had broken a window and was waiting for the punishment. He pleaded with me silently to do something, to save him. But I did not move. I let the moment hang in the air. I let Brittany scream insults at him. I let the crowd judge him. Because I knew that in about 30 seconds, the social embarrassment was going to be the least of our problems. The predators had found their prey. The trap was sprung, and Brittany, in her drunken arrogance, had just made sure that nobody would help them. She had painted Trayvon as the villain, which meant when the real villains attacked, everyone would think it was just a domestic dispute. I took a sip of water from a waiter's tray and checked my watch. The show was over. The hunt was about to begin. I watched from the shadows of the ballroom like a hunter waiting for the wind to change. The air in the room was thick with the smell of expensive perfume and the sound of shallow laughter. To anyone else, this was just a party. To anyone else, the man approaching my sister-in-law was just another guest. But I know how to spot a predator because I have spent my entire career analyzing risk. And the man walking toward Brittany was not here to socialize. He moved through the crowd with a terrifying efficiency. He did not bump into anyone. He did not look at the waiters carrying heavy trays of silver. His eyes were locked on one thing and one thing only: the red dress. He was tall. He wore a black suit that fit a little too loosely around the shoulders, the kind of cut designed to hide a holster. His face was blank. No smile, no curiosity. Just a cold, dead stare that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I looked over at Trayvon. My husband was standing near the exit, frozen in place. He saw the man, too. I saw Trayvon's hand twitch at his side. He wanted to run in there. He wanted to pull his sister away. But he knew that if he made a scene now, if he alerted the man that we knew who he was, the bullets would start flying right here in the middle of the dance floor. So Trayvon did nothing. He just watched, pale as a ghost, as the shark swam closer to the bait. Brittany was oblivious. She was high on attention and drunk on champagne. She was spinning around, holding her phone up, checking her angles for the camera. She did not see the danger coming. She thought she was the main character in a fairy tale, but she was actually the opening victim in a horror movie. The man stepped into her personal space. It was aggressive. It was too close for a stranger. He did not introduce himself. He did not offer to buy her a drink. He leaned down, bringing his mouth right next to her ear. From where I was standing, I could not hear the words, but I could see the movement of his lips. I read them perfectly. "Where is the merchandise?" It was a demand, a threat. But Brittany, sweet, stupid. Brittany, she heard what she wanted to hear. She pulled back and looked at him, her eyes glassy and unfocused. She smiled. A coy, flirtatious smile that made my stomach turn. She thought he was hitting on her. She thought he was asking about her outfit or her availability. She laughed, throwing her hand out to touch his chest lightly. "Oh, you are naughty. My husband is right over there, you know. But thank you. It is custom made. Do you like the way it feels?" She ran her hand down her own hip, smoothing the red satin. She was practically inviting him to touch the evidence. She had no idea that she was flirting with her own executioner. The man did not smile back. He did not charmed by her antics. He looked annoyed. He looked at her hand on his chest like it was a cockroach. He realized quickly that she was not the courier. She was not the professional contact he was expecting. She was just a civilian wearing the package. And in his line of work, civilians are just obstacles. I saw his eyes dart to the waiter passing by with a tray of red wine. I saw the calculation happen in real time. He needed to get her alone. He needed to get her away from the cameras and the crowd. He needed to get her into a box where he could cut that dress off her body without witnesses. He reached out. His movement was so fast, so precise, that if you blinked you would have missed it. He did not grab her. He grabbed the tray. With a flick of his wrist, he tipped a full glass of dark, heavy Cabernet Sauvignon right toward her. It happened in slow motion for me. The dark liquid arched through the air. It hit Brittany right in the center of her chest. The splash was violent. The red wine soaked into the red satin, instantly turning the bright crimson fabric into a dark, wet, heavy mess. It dripped down the front of the gown, staining the embroidery soaking through to her skin. Brittany shrieked. It was a high, piercing sound that cut through the music. She dropped her phone. She looked down at herself in horror. "Oh my God," she screamed. "My dress! You idiot! You ruined my dress!" The man stepped back, putting his hands up in a mock apology. His face was a mask of fake concern, but his eyes were still dead. "I am so sorry," he said, his voice flat and monotone. "I am so clumsy. Please. You should go clean that up. The stain will set if you do not hurry." He pointed toward the back corner of the ballroom, toward the long, narrow hallway that led to the restrooms, toward the trap. "You have to take it off," he said, pushing the suggestion into her mind. "You have to wash it out immediately. Go." Brittany was hyperventilating. She was not thinking about danger. She was thinking about fashion. She was thinking about her ruined Instagram moment. "I cannot believe this," she wailed, wiping at the stain frantically, which only made it worse. "This is imported silk, you clumsy jerk." She turned and started stomping toward the bathroom. She was moving exactly where he wanted her to go. She was isolating herself. I looked at Trayvon. He looked like he was going to vomit. His face had lost every drop of blood. He was gripping the velvet curtain next to him so hard his knuckles were white. He knew what that spill meant. It is the oldest trick in the book. You mark the target. You force them to retreat. You corner them. Trayvon looked at me with wild, desperate eyes. He mouthed one word to me. Bathroom. He could not go in there. It was the ladies' room. If he followed her, insecurity would tackle him. He was helpless. But I was not. I pushed myself off the pillar. I smoothed my blazer. I took a deep breath. I was not armed with a gun. I was not trained in hand-to-hand combat. But I had adrenaline, I had rage, and I had the element of surprise. I started walking across the ballroom floor. I moved parallel to Brittany, keeping a safe distance. I saw the man in the suit watch her go. He waited 3 seconds. Then he adjusted his cuffs and started following her. He was walking slowly, calmly. He knew she was not going anywhere. He thought he had won. He did not see me. He did not look at the wife in the boring gray suit. Trayvon stayed by the door. His job was to watch the perimeter. My job was to go into the belly of the beast. I followed the trail of red wine drops on the marble floor. They looked like blood. Maybe it was a foreshadowing. Brittany pushed open the heavy wooden doors of the restroom and disappeared inside. The man in the suit stopped outside. He leaned against the wall, pretending to check his phone. He was guarding the door. He was waiting for the room to clear out, so he could go in and finish the job. I walked right up to him. I did not stop. I did not make eye contact. I acted like just another annoyed guest needing to use the facilities. He looked up at me as I approached. His eyes scanned me. He saw the purse. He saw the heels. He dismissed me as a threat. He stepped aside to let me pass. "Excuse me," I said, my voice polite and small. He grunted and looked back at his phone. Big mistake. I pushed the door open and stepped into the cool, tiled silence of the restroom. The door clicked shut behind me, locking out the music, locking out the party, and locking me in a cage with a hysterical woman and a dress worth more than my life. I looked at the mirror. Brittany was standing at the sink, frantically splashing water on her chest, sobbing. She looked up and saw me in the reflection. "Keisha," she cried, "look what happened. That idiot spilled wine on me. Help me get this off." I locked the main door behind me. I turned the deadbolt. "I am going to help you, Brittany," I said, walking toward her. "But first you need to shut up and listen to me very carefully." She blinked, confused by my tone. "We are not alone," I whispered, and that was not an accident. The hunt had moved into the kill box, and I was the only thing standing between her and the end of the line. I turned the deadbolt on the heavy restroom door. The click echoed off the marble walls like a gunshot. It was the only sound in the room besides the running water and Brittany's frantic breathing. We were locked in. For a moment, the silence was heavy and suffocating. The high-end finishes of the hotel bathroom, the gold faucets, the velvet seating area, the fresh orchids on the counter felt ridiculous now. We were trapped in a gilded cage. Brittany was standing in front of the mirror, scrubbing at the wine stain on her chest with a rough paper towel. She was making it worse. The red wine had soaked deep into the fibers of the silk, turning the bright crimson into a dark, ugly bruise. She looked at me through the mirror, and her eyes were full of venom. "You are enjoying this, aren't you?" she spat. "You are standing there with that superior look on your face, just loving the fact that my night is ruined." I did not answer her immediately. I walked over to the sinks and checked under the counter. I checked the stalls. I was clearing the room. I needed to make sure there were no vents big enough for someone to crawl through. "Are you listening to me?" Brittany yelled, slamming her hand down on the marble counter. "This is your fault, Keisha. You brought this bad energy. That clumsy waiter was probably staring at you because you look like a funeral director in that suit. You jinxed me." I turned to face her. I leaned against the door, blocking the only exit. "Brittany, stop talking," I said. My voice was low, but it vibrated off the tiles. "Stop talking about the wine. Stop talking about the gala. You need to take that dress off right now." She laughed. It was a hysterical, high-pitched sound. "You are insane," she said. "You really are. You think just because you locked the door you can bully me. I am not taking this dress off. I am going to call Jamal. I am going to tell him his sister-in-law has finally snapped." She reached for her phone, which was sitting on the edge of the sink. I moved fast. I crossed the room in 2 strides and swatted the phone out of her hand. It skittered across the floor and slid under one of the toilet stalls. "Hey!" she screamed, lunging at me. "That is an iPhone 15. Are you crazy?" I grabbed her by the shoulders. I dug my fingers into her skin. I needed her to feel the pain. I needed her to wake up. "Listen to me," I said, shaking her. "The man who spilled that wine on you did it on purpose. He is outside that door right now, waiting for the hallway to clear. There are 2 other men guarding the exits. They are not here for the party, Brittany. They are here for the dress." She tried to push me away, but she was weak. She was a woman who spent her life being pampered, while I spent my life calculating worst-case scenarios. "You are lying," she cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. "You are just trying to scare me. You want the dress back because you are jealous that I look better in it." "I am not jealous," I shouted. "I am trying to keep you alive. There is something inside the dress, Brittany. Trayvon sewed something into the hem. That is why he was panicking. That is why we chased you here. You are wearing contraband." She froze. The words finally started to sink in. She looked down at the dress, then back at me. "What do you mean, contraband?" she whispered. "Like drugs." "Is Trayvon dealing drugs?" "I do not know," I said. "But we are going to find out. Take it off." "No," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. "I am not stripping naked in a public bathroom, Keisha. I do not trust you." I did not have time to argue. Every second we wasted was a second the men outside were using to formulate a plan to breach the door. I knew that locks pick easily. I knew that hotel security could be bribed or coerced. We were running on borrowed time. I grabbed the neckline of the dress. "Get off me!" she shrieked, clawing at my hands. I did not let go. I pulled the fabric down. The sound of the silk straining was loud in the small room. We wrestled. It was ugly. It was not a movie fight. It was two women, one desperate to save a life, the other desperate to save her dignity, struggling on a wet bathroom floor. Brittany scratched my neck. I felt her nails break skin. I did not care. I spun her around and grabbed the zipper at the back. It was stuck. The cheap construction of the dress was failing. "It will not unzip," I yelled. "Then let go," she sobbed, hitting my arm. "I cannot let go," I said. I grabbed the hem of the dress, the thick, heavy part that had looked so suspicious to me back at the house. I could feel the hard object inside. It was rectangular and rigid. I gripped the fabric with both hands. I used all the strength I had built up from years of boxing classes, years of carrying the weight of this family on my back. I ripped it. The sound of the thick satin tearing was violent. It sounded like a bone breaking. Brittany screamed as the skirt of the dress shredded upward. "No, you ruined it," she wailed. But I was not looking at her. I was looking at what fell out of the lining. It hit the tile floor with a distinct plastic clatter. It bounced once and spun to a stop near the drain in the center of the room. We both froze. The struggle stopped instantly. The silence returned, but this time it was terrified silence. Brittany looked down. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide. It was not a bag of white powder. It was not a diamond. It was not a stack of cash. Lying on the white tile floor was a black SD memory card and a small square device with a tiny green light that was blinking rhythmically. Blink, blink, blink. Brittany stared at it. She looked like a child who had just seen a monster. "What is that?" she whispered. Her voice was trembling so hard I could barely hear her. "Is that a bomb?" I knelt down and picked up the objects. The SD card was a high-capacity industrial-grade card. The other device was a GPS tracker, the kind used for high-value cargo, the kind that works even inside buildings. I looked at the blinking light. It was a beacon. It was telling the men outside exactly where we were. It was telling them that the target was stationary. I stood up slowly. My mind was racing, connecting the dots that had been scattered over the last 6 months. Trayvon's late nights, the sudden influx of cash, the way he talked about logistics and supply chains with a nervousness that did not match his job description. He was not moving drugs. Drugs are bulky. Drugs have a smell. Drugs are high risk for low reward if you are just a mule. This was data. Brittany looked at me, her face pale. "Keisha, what is happening? Why did Trayvon put a computer chip in my dress?" "He did not put it in your dress," I said, my voice cold. "He put it in a package. He is moving information, Brittany. This is digital smuggling. This could be anything. Bank account numbers for a cartel, identity theft records, government secrets, blackmail material." I squeezed the SD card in my hand. "He is not just a mule," I said, realizing the horror of the situation. "He is a vault. He is holding the keys to something worth millions, and he put it on you." Brittany sank to the floor. She did not care about the wet tiles anymore. She looked down at the ruined dress hanging off her body. The red wine stain looked even more like blood now. "He used me," she whimpered. "My own brother used me as a decoy." "Yes, he did," I said. I looked at the GPS tracker. "I have to destroy this." I dropped the tracker on the floor and stomped on it with my heel. I crushed it until the plastic shattered and the green light stopped blinking. But it was too late. They knew we were here. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled. It was a subtle sound first, then it became aggressive. Someone was trying to open the door from the outside. Brittany scrambled backward, pushing herself into the corner under the sinks. "They are coming in!" she cried, covering her mouth. I looked at the door. I saw the lock turn slightly. They had a key. Of course they had a key. I looked at Brittany huddled on the floor, a mess of torn red satin and fear. Then I looked at the mirror. I fixed my hair. I adjusted my blazer. "Get up, Brittany," I commanded. "I cannot," she sobbed. "Get up," I shouted. "We are not going to die on a bathroom floor. Put your shoes on. Fix your dress as best you can. We are going out the back way." "There is no back way," she cried, pointing at the single door. I looked up at the ceiling. There was a maintenance hatch above the last stall. It was small, but we were desperate. "I did not say we were walking out," I said. "I said we are leaving." The door handle turned again violently. Then a heavy thud shook the frame. They were done being polite. They were kicking it down. I grabbed Brittany's arm and pulled her into the stall. "Climb?" I said, pointing to the toilet. "But my dress," she stammered. "Forget the damn dress," I said, pushing her upward. "The dress is dead. And if you do not move fast, we will be too." I kicked the maintenance door open and stepped out into the service corridor. The air here smelled like industrial cleaner and stale grease, a sharp contrast to the lavender and money scent of the ballroom. Brittany stumbled out behind me, clutching the shreds of her ruined dress against her chest, her mascara running in dark rivers down her face. She was shaking so hard, her teeth were chattering, but I did not have time to comfort her. My eyes were locked on the scene unfolding 10 feet away. It was my husband. It was Trayvon. But it was not the man I had married. It was a cornered animal. He was pressed up against the beige wall of the hallway, his expensive tuxedo jacket bunched up around his shoulders. Looming over him were the two men in black suits I had seen earlier. They were massive, taking up the entire width of the corridor. One of them had his forearm pressed against Trayvon's throat, pinning him in place. Trayvon's feet were barely touching the floor. His face was a mask of sheer terror, eyes bulging, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water as he struggled for air. "Where is she?" the man growled. His voice was deep and gravelly, the kind of voice that did not make threats because it was a threat all on its own. "I do not know." Trayvon choked out his hands, clawing uselessly at the man's arm. "She went to the bathroom." "I swear, I am trying to help you." "You are stalling," the second man said. He was standing back slightly, watching the hallway, his hand resting inside his jacket. "We are done waiting, Trayvon. The boss wants his property back, and he wants to know why you thought you could steal from him and live to talk about it." "I did not steal it." Trayvon gasped. "I was just holding it, for leverage. We can talk about this." I stood there for a split second, processing what I was hearing. Stealing. Leverage. The boss. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together in my mind with a violent clarity. This was not a delivery gone wrong. This was a blackmail scheme gone horribly right. I stepped forward into the light. I held my hand up high. Pinched between my thumb and forefinger was the small black SD card. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice echoed off the concrete walls. The three men froze. The man pinning Trayvon turned his head slowly to look at me. Trayvon's eyes found mine, and for a second I saw relief wash over him. Then I saw shame. "Let him go," I said. My voice did not shake. I was channeling every ounce of rage I felt into a cold, hard weapon. The man looked at the card in my hand. He recognized it instantly. He loosened his grip on Trayvon's throat, letting my husband slide down the wall to the floor. Trayvon collapsed in a heap, coughing and gasping for air. "Mrs. Mitchell," the man said, turning his body toward me. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "You found the prize. Good. Give it to me, and we can all go home tonight." I tightened my grip on the card. I took a step back, positioning myself near a fire alarm pull station. "Take one more step, and I snap it in half," I warned. "I know what this is. I know what is on here. And I know that if I destroy it, you lose whatever leverage you have over my husband. But more importantly, you lose the data your boss is desperate to get back. So stay right where you are." The man stopped. He held up his hands in a mocking surrender. "You are a smart woman, Keisha. Trayvon told us you were smart. He said you were the brains of the operation." I looked down at Trayvon. He was wiping saliva from his chin, looking up at me with pleading eyes. "Tell them to leave," Trayvon said, his voice raspy. "Give them the card, Keisha. Please, just give it to them." Why, I asked. I did not look at the thugs. I kept my eyes glued to my husband. Why is this card so important, Trayvon? Why did you risk your life, my life, and your sister's life for a piece of plastic? It is the list, he whispered. What list? I demanded. The client list, Trayvon said, looking down at the floor. The laundering list. The names, the accounts, the routing numbers for every dirty dollar the boss has moved in the last 5 years. It is worth millions, Keisha. It is the insurance policy. I felt the blood drain from my face. My husband had stolen the holy grail of organized crime. He had taken the one thing that could send an entire criminal empire to prison for life. And why did you take it, I asked, though I was starting to suspect the answer. You are a logistics manager, Trevin. You move boxes. You do not move millions. Why did you need this? He did not answer. He just shook his head. I asked you a question, I yelled. The sound made Brittany jump behind me. I owe them money, he screamed back. His voice broke, cracking under the weight of his confession. I owe them $50,000, Keisha. I lost it. Okay, I lost it all. Gambling, I whispered. The missing money from our account. The late nights. It was not another woman. It was a table. It was a game. It started small, he cried. Just sports betting. Then poker. Then I got in deep with the wrong people. These people. He pointed a shaking finger at the men in suits. They own the underground casinos. I borrowed to win it back, but I lost again. They were going to break my legs, Keisha. They were going to come to the house. So you stole their ledger, I said, piecing it together, to blackmail them. I thought if I had the list, they would wipe the debt, he said. It was a trade, my freedom for their secrets. I looked at him with pure disgust. You are an idiot, Trayvon. You do not blackmail people who kill for a living. You do not negotiate with sharks when you are bleeding in the water. But the worst part was not the gambling. The worst part was not even the theft. The worst part was the delivery method. I held up the card again. So tell me this. I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. If this was your leverage, why was it sewn into a dress addressed to me? Why did you send it to our house? Why did you put it on my body? Trayvon looked away. He could not meet my gaze. Answer me, I screamed. Because nobody looks at you, he mumbled. What did you say, I asked. Because you are a housewife, he said louder this time. You are boring, Keisha. You are a risk analyst. You follow the rules. You drive the speed limit. You pay your taxes. You are the safest person I know. He looked up at me, and his logic was so twisted it made me want to vomit. If I kept it on me, they would find it, he explained. They search me. They watch me. But you, nobody suspects the wife. Nobody suspects the boring middle-class woman in the suburbs. I thought if I hid it in your closet, it would be safe until I could make the deal. I was going to cut it out tonight while you were sleeping. I stared at him. The betrayal hit me harder than any physical blow could have. He did not see me as a partner. He did not see me as a wife. He saw me as a storage unit. He saw me as a mule. He weaponized my clean record. He weaponized my safety. He took the life I worked so hard to build, the reputation I protected, and he used it to hide his sins. And when Brittany took the dress, I said, gesturing to his sobbing sister behind me. I panicked, he said. I knew they were tracking the GPS. I knew once it left the house, once it started moving around the city, they would come for it. You knew they would come for her, I said. You knew they would see the dress and start shooting. And you still let her walk out the door because you were too cowardly to stop her and admit what you did. I tried to stop her, he whined. You tried to save the card, I corrected him. You did not care about the women wearing it. You did not care if it was me or Brittany. We were just packaging to you. The thug stepped forward again, checking his watch. This is a very touching domestic dispute, he said dryly. But we are on a schedule. The card, Mrs. Mitchell. Now. I looked at the card. I looked at Trayvon. He was pathetic. A $50,000 debt had turned him into a monster who was willing to sacrifice his entire family. And Brittany. Poor vain Brittany. She had walked into this thinking she was stealing a fashion statement, and instead, she had turned herself into a moving target. The reason the men had attacked her with wine, the reason they were stalking her, was because the GPS told them exactly where the list was. She was a beacon. If she had not taken that dress, I would have worn it. I would be the one with wine on my chest. I would be the one cornered in a bathroom. Trayvon had set me up to be the victim. Fate had just swapped the players. I took a deep breath. I knew I could not keep the card. I was not a cop. I was not a hero. I was a woman who wanted to survive the night. But I was not going to give it up for free. "I will give you the card," I said to the man. "But first, you are going to let us walk out of here. All three of us. You are going to let us get in our car and drive away." The man laughed. "You are in no position to negotiate." I held the card over the metal grate of a floor drain near my feet. "Try me," I said. I will drop it. Right now. It will go down into the sewer, into the water, and your boss's precious list will be gone forever. And then what do you think he will do to you for losing it?" The man stopped laughing. He looked at the drain. He looked at my hand. He knew I was serious. He saw the calculation in my eyes. "Fine," he spat. "Hand it over. You can go." "I am not handing it over," I said. "I am leaving it here." I placed the tiny SD card on the top of the fire extinguisher box on the wall. "We are going to walk to the exit," I said. "If you move, if you follow us, I will pull this fire alarm. The sprinklers will go on, the fire department will come, the police will come, and this whole secret operation will be on the evening news." The man glared at me with pure hatred, but he stayed still. He nodded at the other thug to back off. Trayvon scrambled to his feet. He looked at me, reaching out a hand. "Keisha, baby, thank you. You saved us." "Don't touch me," I hissed. I grabbed Brittany's arm. She was still sobbing, staring at her brother with horror. She had heard everything. She knew now that her perfect brother, the man she idolized, had sold her out for a poker debt. "Let's go," I said to her. We walked backward down the hallway, keeping our eyes on the men. Trayvon tried to walk beside me, but I pushed him away. "You walk in front," I told him. "If they decide to shoot, you are going to be the shield this time." We reached the emergency exit door. I pushed the bar and the cool night air hit my face. We were out. We were alive. But as I looked at Trayvon's shaking back, I knew the real war had just begun. He thought the debt was paid because I gave back the card. He thought the slate was clean. He was wrong. He had revealed his hand. He had shown me exactly who he was. A liar, a thief, a coward. And now he was going to learn what happens when you cross a risk analyst. I had just mitigated the immediate threat of the cartel. Now it was time to deal with the threat in my own home. I checked my phone as we ran toward the car. My FBI contact had replied to my location share. "On my way." Good. Trayvon thought he was escaping. He had no idea he was running from one prison straight into another. We backed away from the men slowly, step by step, until we hit the heavy metal door of the service exit. I did not take my eyes off the man in the suit. He was watching us with the cold, calculated stare of a predator who had just let a meal go but was already planning the next hunt. I knew he was not going to just let us walk away. As soon as that door closed, he would be on his radio. He would be calling for backup. He would be sending people to the parking lot. We had bought ourselves maybe 3 minutes of lead time. I pushed the door open, and the noise of the hotel kitchen hit us like a physical wall. It was chaos. The air was thick with steam and the smell of roasted garlic and searing steak. Dozens of chefs in white coats were shouting orders, pans were clanging against burners, and waiters were rushing in and out with trays held high above their heads. "Move!" I shouted, pushing Trayvon forward. He stumbled, looking around wildly. He looked completely out of place in his tuxedo amidst the industrial hustle of the kitchen. He was pale, sweating, and his eyes were darting everywhere except where they needed to be. "Where are we going?" he yelled over the noise of a commercial dishwasher. "The loading dock," I commanded. "Go!" I grabbed Brittany's hand. She was dead weight. She was not running. She was barely walking. She was in a state of total shock. Her face was a mess of smeared makeup and snot. The red dress, the one she had strutted in so proudly just an hour ago, was now a tattered rag hanging off her body. "My shoes," she whimpered, pulling back. "Keisha, I lost my shoes in the hallway." "Leave them," I screamed, pulling her harder. "You do not need shoes to survive, Brittany. Move your feet." We ran down the narrow aisle between the prep stations. A sous chef looked up from chopping onions and shouted at us, "Hey, you cannot be in here. Guests are not allowed in the kitchen." I did not stop to explain. I did not stop to apologize. I just kept running, dragging my useless family behind me. Trayvon crashed into a cart of dirty dishes, plates shattered on the floor, silverware scattered everywhere with a deafening crash. He slipped on a piece of lettuce and went down hard on one knee. "Get up!" I yelled. "Get up, Trayvon!" He scrambled to his feet, his expensive suit pants now stained with grease and floor sludge. He looked pathetic. This was the man who thought he could outsmart a cartel. This was the man who thought he was a player. He could not even navigate a kitchen without causing a disaster. We burst through the back doors onto the loading dock. The cool night air rushed into my lungs, but it did not bring relief. It brought the smell of wet pavement dumpsters and exhaust fumes. It was raining lightly, a cold, miserable drizzle that slicked the concrete. The loading dock was dark. Shadows stretched long and menacing from the single yellow security light buzzing overhead. "The car is on the other side," I said, pointing toward the alleyway that led to the valet lot. "We have to go through the alley." "No," Brittany cried. She stopped abruptly, her bare feet slapping against the wet, cold concrete. "I cannot go that way, Keisha. It is dark. It is dirty. There are probably rats." I spun around and grabbed her shoulders. I looked into her eyes, and I saw the woman who had walked into my house and stolen from me. I saw the woman who had insulted my body, my age, and my marriage, and now I was looking at a child. "Do you think the men with the guns care about the rats?" I asked her. "Do you think they care about your feet? They are coming, Brittany. And if they catch us, they are not going to ask for the dress back. They are going to put a bullet in your head just to stop the GPS signal. Do you understand me?" She sobbed, her body shaking violently. "I want to go home," she wailed. "I just want to go home." "Then run," I said. We took off down the alley. It was a narrow passage between the hotel and the neighboring brick building. The ground was uneven, full of potholes and puddles of questionable liquid. Trash cans lined the walls, overflowing with garbage bags. Brittany was struggling. Every step she took was painful. Her bare feet were stepping on gravel, glass, and slime. She was limping, crying out with every stride. "Ow, ow, my feet," she gasped. "Keisha, please slow down." "I cannot slow down," I said, keeping my pace. I was checking behind us. I expected to see the back door fly open any second. I expected to see the silhouette of the man in the suit raising a silencer. Trayvon was panting heavily beside me. He was out of shape. His gambling addiction had kept him in chairs, not in the gym. He was wheezing, clutching his side. "I think we lost them," he gasped. "I think we are okay." "You think wrong," I snapped. "Keep moving." And then it happened. The moment that defined the fall of Brittany Mitchell. We were nearing the end of the alley where the pavement turned into a muddy slope leading down to the street level. It was slick with rain and oil. Brittany tried to navigate it. She stepped carefully, her toes curling in the mud, trying to find traction. But she had no balance. She was drunk, she was exhausted, and she was terrified. Her foot slipped. She let out a shriek as her legs went out from under her. She fell hard, landing flat on her back in a deep puddle of black, oily mud. She slid down the slope a few feet, thrashing her arms trying to grab onto something, but there was nothing but wet trash bags. She landed at the bottom in a heap. The red dress was gone. It was now a brown, heavy, sodden mess. Her blonde hair, which had been perfectly styled in a salon that morning, was plastered to her skull with muck. Her face was splashed with dirty water. She sat up, spitting mud out of her mouth. She looked down at herself. She touched her face and pulled her hand away, covered in grime. "Oh my God," she screamed. It was a primal scream, a scream of pure vanity dying a painful death. "Look at me. Look at what happened to me." I stood at the top of the slope looking down at her. I should have felt pity. I should have felt the urge to rush down there and help her up. I was a nurse after all. My instinct was to heal. But in that moment I did not feel like a nurse. I felt like a judge. And the verdict had just been delivered. "Karma," I whispered to myself. Trayvon rushed down the slope, slipping and sliding to get to her. "Brittany, are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her. "Don't touch me," she screamed, slapping his hand away. "You did this to me, Trayvon. You and your stupid debt, you ruined my life. Look at me. I am covered in trash. I am sitting in garbage." "Get up," Brittany, Trayvon pleaded, looking back at the alley entrance. "We have to go." She refused to move. She sat there in the mud, crying like a toddler having a tantrum. I cannot get up. I am done. Just leave me here. Let them kill me. I do not care anymore. I am ruined. I walked down the slope, carefully planting my heels to keep my balance. My suit was damp but clean. My shoes were still on my feet. I walked up to where she was sitting. I looked down at her. Get up, I said. My voice was not loud, but it was sharp. She looked up at me through her matted hair. Her eyes were red and swollen. Why do you care? She sniffled. You hate me. You probably love this. You probably love seeing me like this. I do not love it, I said. I do not feel anything about it, Brittany. Because right now, you are not my sister-in-law. You are not the popular girl. You are a liability. And I do not leave liabilities behind to talk to the police or the bad guys. So get up. I reached out a hand. I did not offer comfort. I offered an exit strategy. She looked at my hand. Then she looked at Trayvon, who was uselessly wringing his hands. She realized that I was the only person who was actually functioning. I was the only adult in the room. She reached up and grabbed my hand. Her palm was slimy with mud. I pulled her up. She was heavy, soaking wet, and shivering uncontrollably. She could barely stand. Come on, I said. The car is 50 yards away. We limp-walked the rest of the way to the parking lot. Brittany leaned on Trayvon, leaving streaks of mud on his tuxedo. I walked slightly ahead, scanning the cars. I saw our SUV parked under a tree. It looked like a sanctuary. Unlock it, I told Trayvon. He fumbled in his pocket for the keys. His hands were shaking so bad he dropped them in a puddle. Jesus, Trayvon, I hissed. I bent down and snatched the keys out of the water. I unlocked the car. Get in, I ordered. Brittany crawled into the back seat. She did not care about the leather upholstery. She just curled up into a ball, shivering and sobbing quietly. Trayvon got into the passenger seat. He slumped down, putting his head in his hands. I got into the driver's seat. I locked the doors. I started the engine. The sound of the motor purring was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the spot. My eyes were on the rearview mirror. Just as we turned toward the exit, I saw them. The alleyway door burst open. The three men ran out. They looked left and right. One of them pointed at our car. Hold on, I said. I slammed my foot on the gas. The SUV lurched forward. We sped out of the parking lot, tires screeching against the wet asphalt. I did not look back. I did not slow down. I drove like I was on a racetrack, weaving through the late-night traffic, putting as much distance as possible between us and the Grand Hotel. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. The only sound was the rhythmic thumping of the windshield wipers and Brittany's soft weeping from the back seat. Finally, Trayvon spoke. His voice was small, weak. Where are we going? He asked. We cannot go home. They know where we live. I know, I said, keeping my eyes on the road. We are not going home. Then where? He asked. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number on the car's Bluetooth system. It rang twice. Agent Miller speaking, a voice said. I am safe, I said. I have the package, and I have the witnesses. Good, came the reply. Meet us at the safe house. We have a team ready to debrief you. And Keisha, nice work. I hung up. Trayvon looked at me, his mouth gaping open. Who was that? He whispered. Who is Agent Miller? I turned to look at him just for a second. My expression was stone cold. That is the FBI. Trayvon, I said. His eyes went wide. The FBI. You called the feds. I did not just call them tonight, I said, turning back to the road. I have been talking to them for 3 months, ever since I found your second phone, ever since I noticed the deposits. You snitched, he gasped, on your own husband. I saved my own life, I corrected him. And tonight I saved yours and hers. I glanced in the mirror at Brittany. She was asleep or passed out in the back seat, a lump of mud and ruined silk. We are going to the safe house, I said. And when we get there, you are going to tell them everything, Trayvon. Every name, every date, every dollar. Because if you do not, you are going to prison for the rest of your life. And I am not going to visit you. Trayvon slumped back in his seat, defeated. He realized finally that the game was over. He had lost everything. His money, his reputation, his leverage. And most importantly, he had lost me. I gripped the steering wheel, feeling the leather under my fingers. I was tired. I was angry, but I was also free. The secret was out. The burden was lifted. I looked at the road ahead. It was dark and raining, but for the first time in a long time, I could see exactly where I was going. The safe house was not a house at all. It was an abandoned textile warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place where the streetlights flickered and the shadows stretched long and thin, like skeletal fingers. I killed the engine of the SUV. The silence that filled the car was heavy, suffocating. It was the kind of silence that comes after a bomb has gone off, when the ringing in your ears is the only thing you can hear. We sat there for a moment. In the back seat, Brittany was shivering, wrapped in her own arms, a muddy, broken version of the woman who had sashayed into my bedroom just hours ago. Beside me, Trayvon was staring out the windshield at the rusted, corrugated metal door of the warehouse. He looked smaller. The arrogance that usually carried him through life, the swagger of a man who thought he was the smartest person in the room, had evaporated. He looked like what he was, a man who had gambled his life and lost. "Get out," I said. My voice was flat. We stepped out into the damp night air. I punched the code into the keypad by the service door, a code Agent Miller had texted me. The lock disengaged with a heavy metallic clunk. I pushed the door open and flipped the switch. Banks of fluorescent lights flickered to life overhead, buzzing angrily, illuminating a vast empty space with concrete floors and dust motes dancing in the air. It was cold inside, industrial cold. Brittany stumbled in and collapsed onto a stack of old wooden pallets. She pulled her knees to her chest and started crying again. It was a pathetic mewling sound. "I cannot believe this," she sobbed. "My life is over. I am covered in sewage. I was chased by gunmen, and it is all your fault, Trayvon." Trayvon paced back and forth, his hands running through his hair. He was manic now, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving panic in its place. "We are okay," he muttered, talking more to himself than to us. "We are okay." Keisha gave them the card. "The debt is paid. They have the list back. They won't come after us now. We just need to lay low for a few days. We can fix this." I walked over to a metal work table and leaned against it, crossing my arms. I watched him pace. I watched him try to reconstruct his delusion. "There is no we, Trayvon," I said. He stopped and looked at me. "What do you mean?" "Of course there is a we. We are married. We are a team. You saved me back there, Keisha. You were amazing. I know I messed up. I know I lied about the money, but we can get it back. I can work overtime. We can refinance the house." I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that echoed off the metal walls. "Refinance the house," I repeated. "Which house, Trayvon?" "The house," he said, confused. "Our house." "You mean my house," I said. He frowned. "What are you talking about?" I pushed myself off the table and walked toward him. The clicking of my heels on the concrete was the only sound in the room. "You really have not been paying attention, have you? You were so busy playing poker in basements and trying to be a big shot with the cartel that you did not notice what was happening in your own home." I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out my phone. I unlocked it and held up the screen for him to see. It was a banking app. "Look at the balance, Trayvon." He squinted at the screen. "Zero. That is the joint account," I said. "I closed it this morning." He stepped back, his face pale. "You took the money." "I took my money," I corrected him. "I took every cent that I contributed." "And as for the house, do you remember those papers you signed 3 months ago? The ones you thought were for the refinancing loan to get a lower interest rate because you said the market was good." He nodded slowly. "Those were not loan documents," I said. "That was a quitclaim deed. You signed the title of the house over to me completely. You have no equity. You have no ownership. You are a guest in my home, Trayvon. And as of tonight, your guest pass is revoked." He looked at me with horror. "You knew. You knew about the gambling. I knew everything I said." My voice rose, filling the warehouse. "I did not just find out tonight. I am a risk analyst, Trayvon. It is literally my job to spot liabilities. And 6 months ago, you became a liability. I started circling him like a shark. I noticed the cash withdrawals. I noticed the lies. But then I found the second phone in the tire well. I did not just look at it, Trayvon. I cloned it." His knees buckled slightly. "You cloned my phone." "Every text message," I said. "Every call log." I know about the $50,000 you owe. I know about the threats. And I know about her. I pointed a finger at his chest. Candace, the cocktail waitress at the underground casino, the one you told you were going to leave me for, the one you bought a diamond bracelet for while our mortgage was overdue. Brittany stopped crying. She looked up from the pallets, her eyes wide. You were cheating on Keisha. Trayvon looked like he was going to be sick. He stammered, trying to find a lie, but there were no lies left. I ended it with her, he whispered. It does not matter, I said. The damage was done. You betrayed me in every way a man can betray a woman. Financial, emotional, physical. You put our future at risk for a thrill. I walked back to the table and leaned on it again. I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had been carrying this secret for half a year, planning moving assets, consulting with lawyers, building a fortress around myself while he was out digging his own grave. So why didn't you leave, he asked. His voice was broken. If you knew 6 months ago, why stay? Why play the loving wife? Because I needed to be sure, I said. I needed to secure the assets. I needed to make sure that when the house of cards fell, I would be standing outside the blast zone. And I needed you to do something exactly like what you did tonight. I needed you to commit a crime so undeniable that I would get full custody of my life back. I looked at Brittany. She was staring at me with a mix of fear and awe. And that brings us to the dress, I said. Trayvon looked up. The dress. What about it? You asked me back at the hotel why I let Brittany take it, I said. You screamed at me. You said I was stupid. You said I was useless. He flinched at the memory of his own words. I did not lose that dress, Trayvon, I said softly. I deployed it. The silence in the room deepened. Even the buzzing lights seemed to quiet down. I saw you tracking the package, I explained. I saw you checking the shipping app every 5 minutes for 3 days. You were sweating. You were nervous. You never buy me gifts, Trayvon. Not like that. So when a box from Colombia arrives and you are acting like it contains a bomb, I knew it was not just a dress. I paused, letting it sink in. I knew it was the payoff. I knew it was whatever you had stolen to clear your debt. So why did you let her take it? He asked. His voice was shaking. Because I could not touch it, I said. If I opened that package, if I found the chip and I went to the police, it would be my word against yours. It would be a domestic dispute. But if the cartel came for it, if something happened publicly, then it becomes a federal case. I looked at Brittany. When she walked in, I saw an opportunity. I saw a way to trigger the explosion without being the one holding the match. I knew she would want it. She always wants what is mine. So I used her greed against her, and I used your cowardice against you. Brittany stood up. She was trembling with rage. You used me, she screamed. You knew. You knew there were bad men coming for that dress, and you let me walk out the door in it. You could have gotten me killed. I looked at her cold and unblinking. You walked into my house without knocking, Brittany. You went into my bedroom. You took my property. You bullied me. You insulted me. You stole from me. I simply did not stop you from facing the consequences of your own actions. She opened her mouth to scream again, but no sound came out. She realized the cruelty of it, but also the logic. She had dug the hole. I just didn't take the shovel out of her hand. Trayvon stared at me. He looked like he was seeing me for the first time. You are not a victim, he whispered. No, I said. You set this whole thing up, he said. The hotel, the chase. You orchestrated it. I did not orchestrate your gambling, Trayvon, I said. I did not orchestrate your theft. I did not orchestrate your affair. All I did was rearrange the pieces on the board so that when you finally tipped the king over, I wouldn't be crushed underneath it. I walked over to him and stood toe to toe. I was not afraid of him anymore. I was not afraid of anything. You thought I was the weak link, I said. You thought I was just the wife waiting at home. You thought you were the player. But you were never the player, Trayvon. You were just a pawn, and pawns get sacrificed. I checked my watch. The FBI will be here in 5 minutes, I said. Agent Miller is a friend of mine. We went to college together. I have already sent him the copies of the text messages from your burner phone. I sent him the GPS data. And I gave him the recording of you confessing in the hallway back at the hotel. Trayvon's eyes bulged. You recorded that. Smart watch, I said, tapping my wrist. Voice activated. He fell to his knees. He started to cry deep, gut-wrenching sobs of a man who realizes there is no way out. Keisha, please, he begged. Please, please don't do this. I will change. I will fix it. It is already fixed, I said. The assets are safe, the debt is revealed, and you are going to prison. That sounds like a solution to me. I walked away from him. I walked to the heavy metal door of the warehouse and looked out into the night. I could see the flashing lights of the approaching sirens in the distance, blue and red lights cutting through the darkness. Brittany was sobbing on the pallets. Trayvon was on his knees. I stood there feeling the cool air on my face. I was tired. God, I was so tired. But I was still standing. I had turned my pain into a plan. I had turned my betrayal into a weapon. And tonight, I had fired the final shot. The sirens got louder. The cavalry was coming, not to save them, but to liberate me. The sound of sirens outside the warehouse grew from a distant wail to a deafening roar that vibrated against the corrugated metal walls. It sounded like the end of the world, but to me it sounded like justice arriving on four wheels. I watched Trayvon's face transform from relief to confusion as the heavy thumping of helicopter blades started overhead. He looked at me, and for the first time he realized that I had not called for a rescue, I had called for a raid. The side door where we had entered did not just open, it exploded inward with the force of a battering ram. Dust and rust rained down from the ceiling. A dozen tactical lights cut through the gloom, blinding us instantly. The air filled with the sharp, commanding shouts of federal agents. FBI, get down, get on the ground now, hands where we can see them. It was chaotic and violent. Men in full tactical gear with rifles raised swarmed into the empty space, moving with a terrifying precision. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to sanitize a high-level threat. Trayvon threw his hands up instinctively, dropping to his knees. "Don't shoot!" he screamed, his voice cracking like a teenager. "I am the victim here. I am the one who called you." Brittany was shrieking, curled up in a ball on the pallets, shielding her head with her muddy arms. I did not move. I stood by the metal table, my hands clearly visible, raised to chest height, calm and steady. I knew the drill. I knew exactly who was leading this team. A tall man in a windbreaker with FBI printed in bold yellow letters on the back stepped through the line of agents. He lowered his weapon when he saw me. He pulled down his tactical mask, revealing a face I had known since my sophomore year at Howard University. Agent Miller walked over to me. He looked at the chaos, then he looked at me and gave a curt nod. "You okay, Keisha?" he asked, his voice cutting through the noise. "I am fine, David," I said. "The package is on the fire extinguisher box in the hallway of the Grand Hotel. The target who was carrying it is right there." I pointed at Trayvon. Miller turned to his team. "Secure him." Two agents moved in on Trayvon. They did not help him up gently. They grabbed his arms and wrenched them behind his back. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting tight echoed in the warehouse. "Wait, wait!" Trayvon yelled, struggling against the restraint. "What are you doing? I am the witness. I am the one who gave you the data. My wife called you. Tell them, Keisha. Tell them I am the good guy." I walked over to where he was kneeling. I looked down at him. "You are not the good guy, Trayvon," I said simply. "You are in possession of stolen federal evidence. You admitted to embezzling funds to pay illegal gambling debts, and you admitted to conspiracy to distribute classified information." But I gave it back. He pleaded, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the dirt. I gave the card back. Agent Miller stepped in. "You gave it back to a known crime syndicate, Mr. Mitchell. That is called aiding and abetting. That is called returning evidence to the scene of a crime. And since we intercepted your little friends outside in the parking lot, we found the card on them. But we also have the recording your wife sent us." Trayvon froze. The reality of the recording hit him. "You confessed to everything on that tape," Miller said. "You confessed to the theft. You confessed to the motive. You confessed to endangering a civilian. That civilian being your sister over there." Trayvon slumped forward, his forehead touching the cold concrete floor. He sobbed, a deep, guttural sound of a man who knows his life is over. "Read him his rights," Miller commanded. I listened as the agent rattled off the Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." It was music to my ears. Then the agents turned their attention to Brittany. She was still cowering on the pallets, shaking violently. When a female agent approached her, Brittany lashed out, kicking her legs like a frightened child. "Do not touch me," she screamed. "I am a victim. My brother did this. I did not know." "Ma'am, stand up." The agent ordered, her voice leaving no room for argument. "I cannot stand up. Look at me," Brittany wailed, pointing at her muddy feet and her ruined dress. "I need a doctor. I need my husband. Call Jamal." "You are being detained for questioning regarding the transport of illicit materials," the agent said, pulling Brittany to her feet. Brittany stumbled. Her face was a mask of shock. "Detained? Me? But I am Brittany Mitchell. I have a following. You cannot arrest me." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Keisha, tell them I am innocent." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had made me feel small for years, the woman who had taken my dress and mocked my body. "You were wearing the evidence, Brittany," I said. "Ignorance is not a defense in the eyes of the law. You took possession of the package. You transported it across state lines. You are going to have to explain that to a judge." They cuffed her. Brittany screamed as the metal touched her skin. It was a high-pitched sound that grated on my nerves. They marched her toward the door. We walked out of the warehouse into a scene that looked like a movie set. The perimeter was flooded with flashing blue and red lights. Police cruisers blocked every exit. An ambulance was on standby. But what caught my eye was the van parked just outside the police tape. It had a satellite dish on top. The press. Trayvon had not just stolen from the mob, he had stolen data that linked high-profile city officials to money laundering. This was not just a crime story, it was a political scandal, and scanners listened to everything. The media knew something big was going down. As the agents led Trayvon and Brittany toward the transport vans, the flashbulbs started popping. It was a blinding staccato of white light. Brittany saw the cameras, and she tried to hide her face, but she could not. She was handcuffed. She was covered in mud from head to toe. Her hair was a bird's nest. Her makeup was smeared down her chin. The beautiful red dress was torn and stained brown. Click, click, click. Those photos would be on the front page of every paper in Atlanta by morning. The socialite in the sewer, the fashionista in filth. Her reputation, the one thing she valued above all else, was being dismantled frame by frame. I walked out behind them, flanked by Agent Miller. I was still wearing my suit. I was clean. I held my head high. I looked like exactly what I was. The survivor, the witness, the only one walking away with her dignity intact. A black Range Rover screeched to a halt at the edge of the police barricade. The door flew open and a man sprinted toward the line of officers. It was Jamal, Brittany's husband, Trayvon's brother. He looked frantic. He was wearing pajamas under a trench coat. He tried to push past a uniformed officer. "That is my wife," he shouted, pointing at Brittany being loaded into the van. "Let me through. Brittany." Brittany saw him. "Jamal," she screamed. "Jamal, help me." Trayvon did this. He ruined everything. Jamal stopped. He looked at his wife in handcuffs, looking like a swamp creature. Then he looked at his brother being shoved into the back of a separate squad car. Trayvon saw Jamal. He tried to stop. "Jamal, man, tell them I am good for it. I just need a lawyer. Call the family lawyer." Jamal stared at Trayvon. His face went from worry to a cold, hard realization. He looked at the FBI agents. He looked at the massive police presence. He looked at me standing calmly next to the lead agent. He put the pieces together. "You did this," Jamal whispered, but in the silence of the moment it carried. "You put my wife in danger." "It was an accident," Trayvon yelled as the door slammed shut on him. Jamal looked at Brittany again. He saw the shame. He saw the ruin. He was a man who cared about image almost as much as she did. He was a rising architect in the city. His name was his brand. And now his wife was the face of a federal laundering bust. He did not run to the van. He did not scream at the police to let her go. He just stood there, hands hanging by his sides, and shook his head. Jamal, Brittany cried, her face pressed against the wire mesh of the van window. "Why aren't you doing something?" Jamal turned his back on her. He walked over to the police tape where I was standing. He looked at me. His eyes were full of pain, but also respect. Did he know Jamal asked me, pointing at the police car where Trayvon was sitting? Did he know she was in danger? I nodded. He knew the moment she took the dress. He knew the GPS was active. He knew the cartel was tracking it. And he let her walk out the door because he was too afraid to admit he had stolen the money. Jamal closed his eyes. He took a deep, shuddering breath. "And you?" he asked, opening his eyes. "Did you know?" "I knew enough to call the FBI," I said. "I tried to stop her, Jamal. I told her to take it off. She laughed at me. She said I was jealous." Jamal let out a bitter laugh. "She always was a fool for attention." He looked back at the van. The engine started. "I am not going down to the station tonight," he said quietly. I looked at him surprised. "That is your wife. That is an accomplice," he said, his voice hard. "If I go down there now, I will be dragged into this media circus. My firm cannot survive that. I have to protect the assets. I have to protect the children." He was doing exactly what I had done. He was cutting the dead weight. He looked at me one last time. "You are the only smart one in this family, Keisha," he said. "I am sorry we did not treat you better." He turned and walked back to his Range Rover. He got in and drove away, leaving his wife and his brother in the back of police vans, surrounded by flashing lights and paparazzi. I watched him go. I felt a twinge of sadness, not for them, but for the illusion of family. It was all so fragile. It all looked so perfect on the outside, the dinners, the holidays, the gifts. But it was all built on lies and vanity, and when the pressure was applied, it shattered into a million pieces. Agent Miller touched my elbow. "You ready to go, Keisha?" he asked. "We need to get your official statement down at the office. Then we will take you to a hotel, a safe one." I nodded. "I am ready." I looked back at the warehouse one last time. It was just an empty building now. The drama was over. The players were leaving the stage. As I walked toward Miller's car, a photographer shouted my name. "Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Mitchell, do you have a comment? Did you know about your husband's double life?" I stopped. I turned to face the camera. The flash blinded me for a second, but I did not blink. "My name is not Mrs. Mitchell," I said, clearly, my voice captured by a dozen microphones. "My name is Keisha. And I am the one who cleaned up the mess." I got into the car and closed the door, shutting out the noise, shutting out the lights, shutting out the life I used to know. As the car pulled away, I did not look back. I looked forward at the road stretching out in front of me, wide open and free. It has been 6 months since the night of the raid at the warehouse. 6 months since the sirens wailed and the flashbulbs popped and my life as Mrs. Trevon Mitchell went up in flames. People ask me if I was scared that night. They ask if I regret turning my husband in. They ask if I feel guilty about ruining a family. I look them dead in the eye and I tell them the truth. I slept like a baby that night. For the first time in 5 years, I slept without checking a bank account, without tracking a phone, and without wondering if the man next to me was going to drag me down into his own personal hell. The legal process was swift and brutal. The federal government does not play games when it comes to money laundering and organized crime. Trayvon thought he could cut a deal. He thought because he gave them the list, he would get a slap on the wrist. He was wrong. The prosecutor called him a flight risk and a danger to the community. They used his own confession against him. They used the text messages I provided. They used the GPS data from the dress. I sat in the back row of the courtroom the day the sentence was read. I did not wear black. I did not wear gray. I wore a crisp white suit. I looked like a new page. I looked like a fresh start. Trevon turned around in his orange jumpsuit and locked eyes with me. He looked thin. He looked tired. He mouthed the word, sorry. I did not smile. I did not nod. I just watched. The judge slammed the gavel down. 10 years. Federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 8. Trayvon collapsed into his chair. He was taken away in handcuffs, weeping like a child. He wanted to be a big shot. He wanted to be a player in the underworld. Now he is just inmate number 7492. He lost his freedom. He lost his career. He lost the respect of everyone who ever knew him. And he lost me. But if Trayvon lost his freedom, Brittany lost the only thing she actually cared about, her image. The internet is a cruel place, and Brittany learned that the hard way. The photos of her being led away from the warehouse went viral within an hour. There she was, the self-proclaimed fashionista covered in mud, her hair a rat's nest, her face streaked with snot and mascara, handcuffed and screaming. The memes were relentless. They called her the Mud Princess. They called her the Swamp Socialite. #Mudgown was trending on Twitter for 3 days straight. People took her glamorous Instagram photos and photoshopped them next to her mugshot. She became the laughingstock of Atlanta. The charity gala, where she had tried to shine, banned her for life. The boutiques where she used to shop quietly canceled her accounts. And then came the final blow. Jamal. Jamal was a man who cared about his reputation as an architect more than he cared about his wife. He did not even wait for her to make bail. He served her with divorce papers while she was still in the holding cell. He cited irreconcilable differences and public humiliation. He had an ironclad prenuptial agreement. Brittany walked out of that marriage with nothing. No alimony, no house, no car. She had to move back in with her parents in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. I heard she works at a call center now. She had to delete her Instagram. She had to delete her TikTok. She vanished from the social scene as if she never existed. She wanted to be famous. She wanted all eyes on her. She got her wish. But the eyes were not looking at her with envy. They were looking at her with pity and disgust. And as for me, the FBI kept their promise. Because I came forward voluntarily, because I provided the key evidence, and because I wore a wire during the interrogation at the safe house, I was granted full immunity. I was classified as a cooperating witness and a victim of spousal fraud. The forensic accountants went through our finances with a fine-tooth comb. They proved that the debts were Trayvon's alone. They proved that the gambling losses were his alone. They proved that I had no knowledge of the illegal activities until I discovered the phone. Under the Innocent Spouse Relief Act, the IRS cleared me of his tax liabilities. I did not have to pay a dime of his $50,000 debt to the cartel. That debt died the moment he went to prison. I sold the house in the suburbs. I could not live there anymore. The walls had eyes. The closet felt tainted. I sold it for a profit and took my half of the equity. I combined it with my savings, the money I had been quietly siphoning away for months. I did not move to another house. I moved up. I am sitting now on the balcony of my new penthouse apartment in Buckhead. I am on the 25th floor. The air up here is clean. The noise of the city is just a gentle hum below me. I can see the skyline of Atlanta glittering in the twilight. It looks beautiful. It looks like opportunity. I have a glass of Pinot Noir in my hand. It is an expensive bottle, a vintage I bought to celebrate my promotion. Yes, I got promoted. My firm was impressed by how I handled the crisis. They said I showed remarkable risk management skills under pressure. They made me the director of the division. I take a sip of the wine. It tastes like victory. The doorbell rings. I stand up and walk across the hardwood floors of my living room. It is minimalist, modern, clean, no clutter, no secrets. I open the door. A delivery driver hands me a box. It is a sleek black box from a high-end designer store in New York. "Thank you," I say. I carry the box to the sofa. I sit down and run my hand over the lid. I feel a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. I open it. Inside, nestled in layers of crisp white tissue paper, is a dress. It is red. It is a deep, rich crimson satin. It is silk. It is custom fitted to my measurements. It is even more beautiful than the one Trayvon ordered from Colombia. I pull it out of the box. The fabric flows over my hands like water. I hold it up against my body. This dress does not have a lumpy hem. It does not contain a microchip. It does not carry the weight of a crime syndicate. It just carries a price tag. A price tag that I paid for with my own money, my own bonus, my own hard work. I stand in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror. I hold the red dress against my skin. I look at myself. I do not look old. I do not look tired. I look powerful. I look dangerous in the best possible way. Brittany said red was not my color. She said I was too boring for it. She said I could not pull it off. I laugh softly. Poor Brittany. She never understood that it is not about the dress. It is about the woman wearing it. I put the dress on. I zip it up. It fits like a glove. I spin around and the skirt flares out perfect and light. I walk back to the balcony. I lean against the railing, letting the wind catch the silk. I raise my glass to the city below, to the ghosts of my past, to the husband who underestimated me, to the sister-in-law who tried to steal from me. I hope they are doing well. Actually, I do not care if they are doing well. I just hope they learned the lesson. I take a final sip of wine and look directly into the camera of my soul. Don't ever take what does not belong to you, Brittany. It might look free, but the cost is always higher than you can afford. And Trayvon, if you are watching this from your cell block on the little TV in the rec room, listen closely. Next time you want to hide something dirty, next time you want to stash your secrets, do not hide them in the closet of a smart woman. Because we do not just clean the closet, we clean house. I am Keisha. I am single. I am rich. And I am free. And this red dress, it is mine. The screen fades to black.